My name's Anna. I work for Evolve as a specialist neurodevelopmental practitioner, and I'm here this morning with Rachel.
My name's Rachel. I work also as a specialist neurodevelopmental practitioner here at Evolve and also team lead for our Harrogate team.
And we're here this morning to talk about ADHD in women and girls.
Yeah, so much to touch on, isn't there? Really vast topic.
A lot of stereotypes of ADHD, and it's often around the presentation in boys and quite young boys at that.
We often, I think, particularly from people who maybe don't know as much about ADHD, I think people often assume that ADHD is a hyperactive, very busy kind of person, and usually, or previously, it was thought about how that is more prevalent in boys, but actually it's just so much more, isn't it?
Yeah. In the past, maybe more, we were looking at behaviours, whereas now we've got a much better understanding of the internal experience, and that I think is where women and girls fit best.
Absolutely. I think as well, the diagnostic criteria, as we know, we do look at a hyperactive and impulsive profile, but we also look at an inattentive profile. And I think it's that inattention sometimes that is often harder to notice, maybe as well is more internalized. So the differences that some people may experience, there's a lot going on in their head, and that might not always be as visible.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's often quite a gender stereotype that a lot of girls would identify with, and some boys as well, about that real motivation to appear to be the same as the group that you're in. So maybe girls and women suppressing those behaviours, trying to mask those behaviours, trying to appear like they are managing to attend and pay attention to things that really they're struggling with.
And I think we know, don't we, that not always, but girls kind of have more of a social motivation, which I think potentially underpins that need to kind of fit in and work really hard to look like they're coping. And I think we hear that a lot, don't we, kind of within our assessments and within that kind of experience of girls.
And we see the impact of that, don't we?
We do.
We see a massive impact of trying to appear to be able to pay attention and to not be impulsive, and to moderate activity levels that don't feel natural. And the impact of that is massive on emotional well-being, particularly mental health.
I think some of the most common kind of things we hear is that kind of build-up of anxiety, perhaps, self-esteem as well.
Self-esteem is huge.
Yeah. Often we hear as well that sometimes young girls and women, they feel like they are just trying so much harder to just be like everybody else, and the challenges that come potentially around having or experiencing ADHD as well is where that sense of trying harder kind of comes, because they're doing so much more, aren't they, to be at a level that, perhaps someone else who is neurotypical doesn't have to work so hard to kind of be at.
And they're maybe less likely to be getting the support with that because nobody knows about it. So it's a bit of a double whammy.
We use a diagnostic framework, don't we? So here at Evolve, we use the DSM-5, but there's also some challenges, I think, within that, isn't there? For
definitely
thinking about girls and women and the differences that they kind of experience.
I think the biggest ones for me are what we've touched on around sort of self-esteem. Often girls will go to a lot of lengths to try and stay on top at school and socially. The demands of a situation can suddenly exceed the capacity that girls have, because they're dealing with all of those challenges. They're trying so hard to appear like everybody else, to not let anybody know how much they're struggling, to stay on top of things like schoolwork.
That stuff's not captured, is it, in the diagnostic criteria? But we know as clinicians that is very much a part of their experience. And actually, it's really important that we understand that, and that, you know, we try and uncover that.
And we're often relying a lot more on sort of interviewing and the person being able to report on those experiences, because the external factors that we generally see more in younger boys, which
Yes.
the criteria in the DSM-5 is very much based on,
Yes.
those things aren't there. So we are needing, as clinicians, to really dig deep on those experiences and get those reports so that we can understand, and hopefully other people around that person can start to understand them better, and they can understand themselves.
Absolutely, and that at the end of the day is what we want, isn't it? You know, people to have a better understanding of themselves and why things may feel more challenging, and ultimately have the support in place, you know, that they may need. We both listened to a podcast, didn't we, quite recently?
Yes.
It was by Attitude. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Attitude. Yes.
Yeah. And it was one that you recommended to me, and it was really, really, really good. Yeah, they brought up some really interesting themes, and particularly relating to what we were chatting about today. Yeah, what did you think?
Yeah, I just found it so interesting. All of the information, I think we've touched on some of it, haven't we? How it went back to the criteria for the diagnosis and where that comes from, and how it's based on the gender differences.
Yeah.
And one thing that really stood out to me was that it wasn't necessarily ADHD that's different for boys and girls. It's more all sorts of things like how girls are socialized, their role in society, how they are expected to be socially, how they're expected to achieve. And it talked a bit about sort of hormones and the massive impact that hormones can have, and particularly around puberty, where we might see more girls coming for assessments around puberty, or recognizing their differences and their difficulties.
What was really good was they were recognizing how the changes and fluctuations in hormones can actually exacerbate the kind of presentation of ADHD and the difficulties, you know, that can kind of come alongside that.
And we need to be asking those questions, don't we? We need to be asking about puberty, but also about sort of cycles and how attention particularly can differ as to where a woman is in her cycle.
Yeah. They also made quite a good point, I think, around things being misdiagnosed as well. And often there's co-occurring differences that kind of come along with ADHD, but even before maybe a girl or a woman has got a diagnosis, often there's other diagnoses that have come before that. Anxiety, you know.
Anxiety is a huge one, isn't it?
We often see in clinic as well, don't we? Kind of particularly with older kind of girls, teenagers, you know, that anxiety and those other kind of maybe mental health sort of experiences are very much present, you know, as well.
And the impact of that on somebody's life, and particularly you mentioned sort of puberty, and for teenage girls, it's just huge. It's such a difficult time with regards to your identity and understanding yourself anyway. We all know that there's less research around women and girls with ADHD anyway, but it was really saying that we shouldn't be comparing girls with ADHD with boys with ADHD. We should be comparing girls with ADHD with girls without ADHD. And
I think, you know, it makes so much sense, doesn't it, when you think about it, because the makeup, the biology is just so different. I think it sounded promising, didn't there? There seems to be a lot of potential research, or certainly research that is perhaps already happening or is in the pipeline. And I think it's going to be so valuable, isn't it? Because I think there are gaps. I don't think we fully understand yet. We need that research, though, don't we? We need that thing, the change to happen.
We really do. We really do. And it's why conversations like this are so valuable. You know, without that research, just being aware and starting these conversations, asking girls and women about their experiences, and listening and learning from our clients. There's just a wealth of information out there that we can tap into.
Particularly here at Evolve, we're very keen, aren't we, to get, if they're able to, a person's self-report. And we want to hear, don't we, what they experience. And I think you know, when we meet people, we try and get that, don't we? But I think as well, it must be hard for someone to make sense of that as well, and to understand what's
Yeah.
happening, and maybe recognizing that they may be experiencing differences, but what that is. I think that
Yeah.
must be really hard as
It
well.
must be really challenging. And I think as well for the people around that young person, like schools would be a big one, families, it's that understanding for them as well, because when we're seeing that internalized presentation that we maybe as clinicians have to dig down on, because maybe the young person hasn't been able to formulate those ideas about themselves, or there's that, you know, they don't understand. So it's gathering that information and interpreting it in a way that's helpful to the people around that young person as well, so that they can put in place the support that the young person might not even really know what it is they need. They know things are difficult, but they might not know what would be helpful.
We're always really keen to kind of promote the message, aren't we, that they don't need to change in any way. You know, they are who they are, and wonderful as they are, but actually the power of maybe some adaptations perhaps to the school environment would be really, really useful and impactful. And that's really why we do these assessments, isn't it? To kind of help people understand themselves, but ultimately as well to ensure that they feel they can advocate for themselves, and other people understand their needs and can make changes that, you know, particularly in an academic setting, are going to be really, really useful and impactful for them going forward.
Definitely. And I love the way the conversations are evolving away from sort of, you know, thinking of ADHD as a condition or anything negative, to just being a neurotype.
Yes.
It's not, you know, it's really not that different when you think about how many people ADHD affects.
Absolutely.
And if we can view it as a neurotype and we can all understand better, then we're going to immediately just resolve some of those difficulties for women and girls with ADHD.
Absolutely. That's that kind of neuroaffirmative kind of approach, isn't it? That we're all kind of really keen to kind of show in all aspects of what we do. And I think just even the language as well, I think that we use, you know, when we're talking about ADHD, I think, you know, you said it perfectly then. Like you say, these aren't deficits or things that are wrong.
Yes.
It's just differences.
Yes.
And I think understanding those differences, you know, is, and we're going in the right way, but it's helping the person to understand those differences about themselves, isn't it? And realise that there's nothing wrong. Just maybe their brain is wired differently, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think we're good at that at Evolve. I think we're really good at using that affirmative language and viewing neurotypes in a very inclusive way, which is really the way forwards, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a really insightful discussion. I feel like we touched on so many things, and we could probably talk for another hour or so, couldn't we, about this? There's just, so much to go on. But
yeah, it was great to chat and just to bounce ideas off each other. And yeah, like you say, we could talk a lot longer, couldn't we, and delve into different areas a lot deeper. We've touched on the experience of women and girls with ADHD.
I think we have, and I think we just really want to encourage that conversation to keep going kind of outside the context of this. Just having those discussions and having that conversation and raising the issues is just really powerful. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching. We've certainly enjoyed chatting, haven't we? So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.